Welcome once again, my friends, and thank you for stopping by to listen to an old storyteller. Today we have a Bengali tale, and the title of this story is The Four Riddles. Emperor of the olden days in India once sent a messenger to one of his tributary Rajas, Prithu by name, to ask him four questions. These were 1. Can there be poison in nectar? 2. Can there be nectar in poison? 3. Can there be a dog in human shape? And 4. Is it possible for a donkey to rule a kingdom? On the answering right of these questions depended the tributary Raja's life, for the emperor's order was that in case of failure that the Raja should forfeit his head. The time granted to him for returning an answer was 3 months, and the first 2 months the Raja spent in fruitless endeavors to solve the riddles. The nearer the termination of the prescribed period approached, the greater grew his anxiety and dread. At length he wrote the questions in big letters on a large sheet of paper and tied it round the neck of a fast-going steed with orders that he should be made to run throughout the whole Raj, and that if anybody on reading the paper could answer the questions, he should be immediately brought to the court with promises of very rich rewards. The plan the Raja had devised promised success, for within a short time there appeared before him a man named Golami, who said that he knew the answers, but he would not give them save in the presence of the emperor himself. Failing to solve the riddle himself, the Raja was forced to send for him to the imperial court. Golami further demanded a very large sum of money and the choicest jewels of great value in order to bring the matter to a happy issue, and being furnished with all that he desired, he started on his journey, which he accomplished in about a fortnight. He then hired one of the grandest houses in the emperor's capital, kept a mistress, and ingratiated himself with the smartest and most fashionable characters there, opened his doors wide to all comers. Pleasure succeeded pleasure, entertainments of all kinds were given on the grandest scale, and alms and loans generously distributed, so that Golami soon became one of the most popular men in the city. Spending a week in this way, he one day called his friends to him and said that he desired to marry, and that he depended upon their selection. They said that there was a bride in every way worthy of him, who, however, would not, in consequence of a vow, listen to the proposal, except under the receipt of 25,000 rupees in advance. Golami at once loosened his purse strings and handed over the sum, not a piece of which, however, found its way into the girl's hands, the entire sum being divided among his false friends. To keep Golami still in their power, they found for him a girl of the vilest and most treacherous nature, and he brought her into his house as his wife, though he knew her to be a bad woman, as soon as he cast eyes upon her. On the 3rd day after the marriage, Golami, who had been out, returned from his banker with a vast sum of money and some jewels and gems of the first water. These he had previously received from his employer and had deposited in the bank. He showed them to his wife and told her that they were the effects of a robbery perpetrated by him on a merchant traveling along the highway, and that a proclamation had gone forth offering a rich reward to giving information against him. He again went out on the pretense of some business, and his wife, taking advantage of his absence, went to the police and informed them against her husband. Though they had heard nothing of the robbery of any royal proclamation, they believed her when they came to know that she was the wife of the offender, and sent some men with her for his arrest. They found him at home waiting for the police, and at once laid hold of him and took him to the emperor, who, instead of leaving the judgment of capital offenses, which highway robbery was, in the hands of the appointed by him, took cognizance of them himself, and after a mere formal trial, Golami was sentenced to death and sent to prison to wait until the moment of execution. The fact was noised abroad, and the prisoner's mistress, hearing of it, hastened to him and comforted him. She engaged counsel to defend her lover with all that she had, and Mulvis to offer prayers for him. With these services, she volunteered to remain in prison with him if thereby she could in any way cheer him up. Gulami sent message after message to friends, but neither came to see him nor sent a word of recognition. They had become his wife's lovers, and with her they talked over his troubles. At length the day of execution dawned, and it happened to be the last day of the 3 months allowed for of the questions sent to Raja Prithu, on which Gulami was in chains, to the place where he was to be executed, a large crowd of spectators, in the midst of whom his false wife and friends. The poor mistress, whose heart was breaking at the sad prospect before him, was waiting in a corner with swimming eyes raised to the face of him whom she loved more than life. The block of wood on which his head was to be placed before the falling of the fatal axe was ready, and the emperor arrived to give the final command. But that command was not to be given, for the man under sentence of death cried out that he had a word for the ears of the emperor, to whom it was of paramount importance. Being told to speak his thoughts, he said that they must be whispered into the emperor's ears, so that others might not hear them. The emperor, fearing some foul play, would not at first allow the near approach of him who he had sentenced to death, but he was at length prevailed upon by the prime minister to do so. So Gulami was led close up to him with his hands pinioned and his legs bound, brought his face near to the emperor's ears, and whispered, "I am no breaker of the law. I am as innocent as your majesty. I was commissioned to answer the 4 questions you sent for solution to Raja Prithu. Will you permit me to give you the answers privately in your ear, or publicly, so that your subjects may know them?" The emperor, thinking that if there was truth in what the man said, he had wronged him grievously, and that it would be just to exonerate and to even reward him in public, bade Gulami give the answers aloud. Thereupon the latter cried out, "Reverend sire, here are the solutions to your questions. The answers I have found in my experiences here. As to the first question, can there be poison in nectar? Look at that ugly creature, superficially so attractive, waiting there to see me die. She is my wife, and instead of the nectar which I expected to find in her, I have found poison. To try her, I gave out that I had committed a robbery, and thus made myself liable to be punished with death, and no sooner had she heard me than she sped the police to denounce me. With regard to the second question, I have found nectar in a vessel of poison. That woman there of evil repute, whose heart is supposed to contain poison, has been to me like life-giving nectar. She has done for me a service as great even as that which a dutiful wife could have done. As to the third question, my false friends, they are dogs in human form. They ate at my expense. Even the morsels that I rejected were seized by them voraciously, just as a dog licks the feet of its master, but when rabid bites him to death. So have these men flattered me, and when maddened by greed of money and a desire to enjoy the uninterrupted companion of the vile woman whom I made my wife, have rushed at me to bite me to death. As to whether a donkey can possibly rule a kingdom, I pray your majesty to look at yourself. You are an emperor, but you have not proved yourself a donkey in sentencing me to death before a thorough investigation." The emperor looked utterly abashed, and remained speechless. At length he invited Gulami into the palace, and entertained him for several days, and then sent him away with rich presents. But these were nothing in comparison with what Prithu gave him after his return. He bestowed upon him the half of his kingdom and the hand of his daughter, though the bridegroom was a Mohammedan, and she a Hindu caste. Restrictions were not so strong then as in latter times, and so it was not difficult for the Rajah to reward his deliverer in this signal manner. Our story ends here. For for the storyteller has not told us what afterward befell the several actors in this drama.
Thank you once again for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this story, please press that like button. Also, please help an old storyteller out by subscribing to my channel. The next story will be posted in a few days, so until then, may your story continue to be a good one.